is Lou Lassard. I come from the U.S. So what I want to talk to you today is about forgiveness and the power of forgiveness. And I want to give you a personal story on how it's affected my life. And I think it's a message that everybody in the world can relate to. Everybody in the world can benefit from it. We all have people in our lives or things in our lives or governments in our lives that we feel, anger towards or hurt towards or something towards that we could benefit from forgiveness. Now, forgiveness to me, forgiveness doesn't matter on any particular religion, any particular beliefs. It's, I believe, there's a divine aspect of it, but to me it's also science. I'm an engineer, so I like to have things be science and make sense to me so that I can believe them even deeper. So I have faith and then I like to see it. A good friend of mine, his name is Howard Wills, he has some forgiveness prayers that he taught me. And the forgiveness prayers have a formula. A simple prayer that, and I'm going to tell my story, is please God, or please divine light, or please, it doesn't matter the name. Help me forgive another person or another country or whatever. Help that person forgive me. And help us all forgive ourselves. So when he taught me that, I was very interested. Now, I grew up when I was a child, I had a difficult childhood. I had a very violent father who, I was the oldest child, so I was usually the one that he took his violence out on. And I had a mother that didn't protect me. My father left when I was 7 years old, and I stayed with my mother, and I was very loyal to my mother, and I appreciated her because she stayed, and provided me a home, provided me a beautiful life. But as I got older, what I found was it was very easy for me to be angry with my father because he hit me and he yelled at me and he did things and then he left me. He wasn't my father, he left. But when I got to be around age 40, which probably seems very old to most of you, I started to realize that I also had some resentment with my mother because there was a little boy inside of me. There was, inside of me there was a little boy that felt he wasn't protected. So me and my mother we would have difficult talk sometimes. We love each other, but we would always have this difficult talk. So last winter I was driving to a class. On a Friday night, it was going to be a whole weekend class. And I decided I was going to do a prayer, the prayer that I said. The whole 2-hour drive to this class. Please, divine light, please God, help me forgive my mother. Help my mother forgive me. Help us both forgive ourselves. Thank you, please, thank you, amen. And I said it over and over and over for 2 hours. It's a very short prayer. I said it for 2 hours, probably 1,000 times, 1,500 times. I went to the class and spent the whole weekend in the class, didn't think anything of it, and then when I was driving home on Sunday night, 2 hours back home, I decided I would call my mother because I hadn't spoke to her in maybe 2 months. I called her on the phone, and I was kind of ready because usually within 1 minute of talking to her on the phone, she's telling me all her problems, and she's, she wishes that I could help her, and and I always end up feeling bad. But this time I called her and I was like, "Hi, Mom." She's like, "Lou, very nice to hear from you." And then she started, within 2 minutes, she started telling me all these terrible things that happened to her when she was a child. Nobody knew the things that had happened to her in the whole world. And she decided that day she was going to share it with her oldest son. So we talked a little while longer on the phone, and then I hung up. I was on my cell phone, and then I started thinking. I'm thinking there's a lot to think about. I didn't realize my mother had all these bad things happen. And everybody can relate to bad things happening, right? And I started thinking, well, why? I'm 50 years old. Why after 50 years did she pick today to talk about those things that she's never talked about? And then I realized it was because on Friday, I did a forgiveness prayer with me and her for 2 hours. I just asked for help. I just said, please help release this energy between us. Please help this release whatever the cause is that's causing this between us. And it shifted something. So what I want to ask from you as part of this talk is to ask for you to call to action. What I would like you to do is to experiment with forgiveness. There's the prayer that I said, but there are many ways to do forgiveness. You don't have to believe me. All I'm saying is nothing bad will happen if you try it, I promise. But something good might happen. And it could be anything, you know. In the US right now, there's a lot of people praying for forgiveness because of our new president. You know, there's a lot of things so what I want to do is just ask, if you're open to it, would you be willing to try forgiveness? Thank you.